As long as you're all having fun, that's all I care about. Woo! Aaron.
Yeah, I'm glad somebody's good at loosening the mood before these things. I was making it worse. It is, yeah. Wine these days, fortuitous coincidence. All right, thanks everybody for coming tonight to this presentation with our visiting curator, Efrem Zelony-Mindell from New York. From Boca Raton, Florida, really, but via...
Oh, I don't know which one's worse, actually.
And we're here to talk predominantly about the show going up in the Landmark Gallery at the School of Art Witness, but we'll talk about the entire book version. Efrem's whole curatorial, artistic, and critical practice all along the way. In the spirit of Witness and Efrem's overall sort of practice, I think Efrem's going to talk on his own, their own for a little while here, and then kind of break into an earlier conversation and Q&A than is typical of these things.
We're going to break out into groups afterwards.
No breakouts. Efrem's been on campus all week long and has visited many graduate studios and knows a lot of work and a lot of people in this room. And so I think that a lot of conversations have gone on around this exhibition, which has yet to even open already. So I think we can sort of invite everybody to participate in that. Before I have two formal introductions that need to be done. This talk, exhibition, and everything else is made possible and has received special funding from the Riley T. and John F. Lott Endowment for Excellence in the Visual Arts, and additional support from Landmark Arts exhibitions and speaker programs in the School of Art comes from the Helen Jones Foundation and TTU Cultural Activities fees administered through the J.T. Margaret Talkington College of Visual and Performing Arts. And also big thanks to everybody who's volunteered on putting this exhibition in the grad school. We've had a lot of fun getting labor in the mix too. Efrem Zelony-Mindell is a white non-binary artist. Some of their curatorial endeavors include group shows, New Flesh, Are You Loathsome, and This Is Not Here. They have written about art for Foam Magazine, Unseen from Amsterdam, Dear Dave, Spot, and essays for various artist monographs. Their first book, New Flesh, published by Gnomic Book in 2019, was shortlisted for the Paris Photo Aperture Foundation Photo Book Award in 2020. Looks to study, sorry, I really butchered that sentence.
You gotta use the commas, man.
I didn't put them there for a reason. Their first book, New Flesh, published by Gnomic Book and shortlisted for the Paris Photo Aperture Foundation Photo Book Award 2020, looks to study queerness beyond the body. Efrem's second book, Primal Sight, also published by Gnomic Book, is a survey of contemporary black and white photography and includes the work of 146 international artists. Their third self-published book, Witness, acts as a small step in the direction of a world cognizant of the values of critical race and gender theory by focusing on the works of 64 BIPOC and LGBTQIA artists. These books are in over 50 libraries and archives around the world. Efrem exists in New York, unless they're elsewhere, like Texas Tech. Thank you. Please welcome.
So great hearing the thing that you wrote about yourself back to yourself. This is just a stand-up comedy hour, everyone. Thank you for coming. No, really, thank you for coming. I'd like to thank Texas Tech. I'd like to thank you, Aaron. But yeah, I'd really like to thank everybody who's taken the time to share themselves and their time to hang this show and further my education. I don't get a damn thing to get an education from GTU. I just had to come and talk to the students. And that vinyl had better be hung by tomorrow morning.
Maybe.
You know, I've spent weeks laying in bed thinking about what I wanted to say tonight. And I was on the phone earlier with my mentor, his name is Bill Hunt, and I said, I don't know what I want to say. And he was like giving me shit for saying that. He was like, I don't believe that you don't know what you want to say. And I was like, I guess that's true. I just haven't written down what it is that I want to say. It's like, aha, that means you're going to talk from your heart. And that's when everything just dumped out of my mind. I really love photography. And sometimes I don't think I know exactly why I love photography. I love art. I love photography. I love how complicated it is and how much it provides an opportunity for conversations. Looping! Thank you, Sam. Sam, you get the biggest thank you. We gotta loop this thing. This project Witness started in a very, Witness was two separate projects that I was working on over the course of the pandemic. And over the course of working with these two separate organizations, some unfortunate but less than surprising ignorance and bigotry sort of made it very clear to me that these two projects were headed towards the scrap heap. And I hated the idea of that. I hated the idea of that because I put in a lot of work, and these artists had put in a lot of work into not just sharing with me, but the work that they make. So I didn't want to see. Oh, so also what you're looking at here is, so the first few slides are slides of the actual book, which I do have here if you'd like to see it afterwards. I'd happily share my copy with you. And then these slides are of the pictures that are in the exhibition, which are said that there's 65 artists in the book and there's 46 artists in the exhibition. Where was I? So I hated the idea that these two different projects were headed towards the scrap heap. And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I realized that they would really support each other in a really wonderful and thoughtful way if I brought them together. I just happened to have some savings for the first time in my life, and I thought, oh, I won't win a gamble. I'm going to put down the money to print this book, and I'll probably make it back in 2 months. It happened in 1 month. This work centers around, I can't remember if you gave an introduction to it or not. Anyways, it centers around folks of color and queer folks, trans folks. There's a whole colorful spectrum of different ways that I don't want to make it sound like we're just a monolith. It focuses around folks who are historically forgotten and what happens when we come together with our different ideas and move together. And I think that really sort of necessitated in and of itself why I didn't want to go to the scrap heap. Anytime is a good time to be listening to people who don't look like us, who don't experience like us, who have histories and stories that aren't ours, and to bring them together. And then, it's really interesting. My practice is sort of like, it feels like falling in love. You're tripping all over the place. I have the real privilege to make these things and work with these people, and I take it upon myself to push that work out as hard as I possibly can to colleagues, to press, to anyone who will listen. Anyone who listens to me is obviously crazier than I am, so I appreciate that. And the opportunity just sort of arose that Aaron and I had been talking about working together and bringing something to the school. And I think it was really only after the pandemic and the murder of George Floyd and a bunch of other things that sort of has conspired in the last 2 years that what we had originally been talking about bringing here, it really didn't make sense to bring that project here. This was a real opportunity to sort of expand what the book started. And what the book even expanded upon because of what it was before that. I don't really have much else to say other than that. I really think that in a lot of ways epitomizes all of my curatorial practice, because I'm just really looking to have conversations with strangers who will become intimate colleagues and friends, and to share that intimacy with other people. I don't think that there's a lot of vulnerability that we're allowed, and not just as artists, but like as human beings. I don't think there's a lot of curiosity that we're allowed as human beings. But again, Sam's the fucking best. Sorry. My practice and my focus is always sort of around providing opportunities and wanting to bring people from dynamic backgrounds and narratives and stories and histories together to see what happens when there's a level playing field. I really like to think of my books and my exhibitions as like a stage, and everyone's invited onto the stage with a bullhorn, and it's like, just shout as loud as you can. And let's just see what happens. And sometimes it's messy, and sometimes it's wonderful, and sometimes it's complicated, and sometimes it's confusing and unknown and unfamiliar. And I think that those are all really exciting opportunities that yield lasting relationships and build ideas that are challenging to some folks, but fuck those folks if they have a problem with the challenge of it. The birth of the universe, and then it solidifies, and then there's a person. I don't know, I'm just like, now it's just free-form jazz. But that's actually how I see it. I do think about it that way. When I'm sequencing things, I'm really thinking about how the pictures sort of speak to each other and tell a narrative. But I don't want to make it sound like you have to read it that way. I like providing those opportunities. It's in there, but if you don't catch it, it's okay. I'm kind of curious what other people think also. I'm going to stop babbling on about nothing now, with the hopes that I would love to invite any of you, all of you, to say something nice, or something mean, or something challenging, or something critical. Or if you'd like to throw a brick at my head, that's fine. I can take that brick. Oh gosh, I just realized I didn't start this conversation the way that I wanted to start this conversation. I hate this authoritarian thing that's happening right now. You have to listen to me because I'm some important human being. I'd really like to have a conversation with you. And I'd really like to invite all of you to come to the exhibition tomorrow to sort of engage in more conversation in the space, because it's a weird one. There's like a smooch cave in Landmark Arts Gallery right now that like I didn't expect to happen. I'm like, I want to see people hanging out in that. Anyways, thanks.
I'm just going to talk about it, if that's all right. That way we can pass that microphone back and forth.
Nobody wants to hear you people anyways.
I've got a few questions that are already kind of queued up in my mind, and then kind of like drift out into the crowd. But one of the things that I find unique about your curations is the sort of egalitarian nature of it. All of your books over the course of the last 6 to 8 years tend to be one picture for one artist per page, and there's not a lot of there's a great amount of fluctuation between people nobody's ever heard of and people everybody's heard of in the first couple of them. And this one is almost strictly emerging artists, if I'm correct. There might be some people I'm missing in there. So I wonder if you can talk about the process of arriving at this curatorial process where you don't, because the standard group show sort of things is usually small groups, 4, 5, 6 people with more pieces, and it's like it tends to land a lot on the work, whereas this is turning into a complicated question. Looking at your work, at your curations, I see the work for itself, but there's like almost an obligation to research the people who made the work and the backstory. So there's sort of always like a show behind the show or a narrative behind the narrative. How did you come to this process of curation?
You want the real answer to that question?
No, I don't know. Answer however
I could totally do this, personal stories. I think the way that it really started was the school that I graduated from offers to some of its senior students the sort of like end of the year show called the Mentor Show. And we all find out about it through other people posting on social media that they got in, but there's no like actual place to go and, oh my God! But there's no actual place to go and like confirm if you are or aren't in the show. But I didn't know that, so I like took myself at like 10 p.m. to the building because I thought maybe it was like the school like production of a play or something, like you see your name and you got into the Mentor Show. And I felt completely humiliated by that because there was no list on any wall anywhere. And I don't mean to go off on a tangent here, but I really think that that was sort of like a real formidable experience because the Mentor Show is an opportunity that like the school provides a pretty famous mentor for the student who is selected. And I thought, if you have the courtesy to get a student, some super famous person, why don't you have the courtesy to like provide a no? And from that, it totally turned into how do we, if I really want to engage in making these conversations, how can I eliminate as much of the hierarchy as is humanly possible? And doing it with one picture seemed a pretty simple way to do that. And I think another thing that really epitomizes my practice is I like things to start really simply and sort of let them expand from there. They can get really complicated that way. I guess I'm just a socialist also. You only get one. Everybody gets one. But everybody gets the same one. We all sing together at the same time. And what that sounds like is, I don't know, what the audience sees in it. And that's really great. I think it also removes a lot of work for the audience. Not that I want to eliminate all the work for the audience. I definitely want people to bring themselves. Like, I don't think I finish my work. I think the audience finishes my work. I think the audience finishes an artist's work. And I just think that by having one of each, it really helps accomplish that. I think one of the best compliments I've ever gotten about any exhibition is, so this is one artist, right? I worked really hard to play in this space of like, they're all singing together in a way that it feels really cohesive and comprehensive, and like, it's a surprise. Like, it's up to you, like you said, it's really up to you. It's up to viewers to take the time and curiosity to figure out who's involved, what's involved, and where all these things come from. Like I was saying before earlier, I think that like we're really punished to be curious in society, out in the world, and I really think that it's an important thing to be able to like provide the opportunity to ask questions and offer support. You can bring yourself to this. You can bring your own curiosity to this, and if you want to, you don't have to. You can leave also. You can look at it and, oh, here's the show. There are no wrong answers, but the opportunity is there. That was a long answer. How am I doing? Oh, okay, great. No, that's how is that? Somebody else?
Besides the logistics of this project, of course, there's always the work of gathering and putting it together. Like, how did this challenge you personally as a curator, an individual?
Thanks. That's a good question. How does this challenge me? Arrogantly, there's a part of me that feels like whenever somebody says, "Can you tell?" Like, maybe if you haven't been in this situation, but I feel like plenty of us have been in a situation where like we're having some sort of interview and somebody says, "Can you tell us the time that you fixed the problem?" And I'll be able to hold up this book and say, "This is how I fixed the fucking problem." it challenged me in a lot of ways that I've never really thought about creativity and art. I really gambled on this. I put my own money down to make this thing, and I don't want to make it sound like that's the only thing that challenged me, but I am a really big advocate of, I think, as artists, we're not really projected enough. It's not projected enough that we are creatives, but we are also entrepreneurs. And finding a healthy balance between those things is really important. It cost me $5,000 to make this book, and I've never spent so much money on something, and I wasn't sure it was going to work. I'm really privileged and grateful that I have an audience that really believes in me, and I have friends and colleagues and family that really care. Outside of the money, the thing that really challenged me about it is, so the publication that this was originally supposed to be, when the person who was originally in charge of that publication company was exposed for saying very thoughtless, bigoted, racist things and then acted with impunity, when they had the opportunity to really sort of accept what was happening, that they had done this, they decided to not do that. This became a conversation. So this book was already previously printed as a completely under a different title, different paper, with a different publisher, everything. And so it became this big group chain email conversation with, like, I wanted to make space because I wanted to show appreciation and love and understanding that, like, this was a complicated situation. And it wasn't uncomfortable, it was actually really exciting to put my vulnerability in the hands of people who I didn't know that well yet. We really got to know each other, and I feel like we really learned together. And this really became ours in a lot of different ways. So the challenge was just the unknown, but, like, it really was a reward. I can't speak for the artists. I'm very happy to see that they're engaging and interacting with each other, but for me that was a really huge reward. To take that on and be like, I am now adjacent, but I want to make that space to, like, hear your feelings, hear your insecurities and what you think about moving this forward and how we should do that. How should we move forward? Because this is an important conversation, especially now. To answer your question.
Good. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Y'all are paying me, I'm on your clock, so.
I'm my employer.
Thank you for being here and asking the question.
Can you talk a little bit about, like, your curatorial process, like how you selected artists and pieces, and then is there like a contextual or like a content thread that kind of emerged through this? And it's probably in the book. I haven't read it. Sorry.
Oh my God! I'm gonna punish you for not knowing anything about my sold-out book.
Okay, so my question, I guess, is like the method of curation, and then also like, was there like an emergence of a consistent theme, content? Yeah.
Thank you. I can't believe I'm about to say this because I just realized, just in this exact moment, a lot of the projects that I make, I really like the work to reveal something to me that, like, I'm open to changing things. Like, I don't like my expectations. I don't like expectations. I like to try to trash that as much as is humanly possible. I think that this is one of the few projects where, like, the call was really sort of amorphous. This originally started as an open call. The open call was, it said, look, something to the effect of, like, looking for queerness, imagery of queerness outside of big city mentality, which I went on to say could be literal or could be psychological or however you want to interpret that. So I think that like this is one of the first times where I really baked into the call that like I wanted to see everything, I was hoping for everything and anything. And in that regard, it really, it's not that it did or didn't surprise me, but like it was dead on. We got abstraction, and there was landscape, and there was portraiture, and there was everything, which is, on a very personal note, something I love to all mix together because like I think that photography we're still really not allowed to do that. We've been keep inside our little cubby holes. But when you, as a curator and as an editor, if you commit the time to really sort of like, not just study what was submitted, I really take the time to look at what was submitted, but also like go to these artists' websites. Because maybe there was something that like, I don't know, open calls are great, especially when they're free. But I still think that there's like these real limitations and like pressure that's unnecessarily put on artists, like how should I, what should I, how is the person who's in charge going to be thinking? And it's my responsibility to really dig in deep and like understand who these people are, and what their narratives are, and what their histories are, and what they want to bring to their own bodies of work, and how I can extract that and bring it together into my crazy idea. So I have the ability to like start with just my gut, and like I was picking the Mona Lisas at first, Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, Mona Lisa, and then as I start to look at them in like a big group, like I put them in preview and I look at them all at once, and things start to speak to each other visually, conceptually, in a bunch of different ways. And some pictures fall away and they go back to their websites and find a different picture because maybe there's something stronger, maybe there's something that needs to be tweaked. Maybe there's like a peak or a valley that can be changed slightly. I really think about this. I have synesthesia, which is a syndrome where the sensations of certain senses trigger the sensations of others. And I don't know if I want to say specifically photography, all of art is capable of triggering me and the like extracurricular sensations that occur in my own body. But there's definitely this like sound thing that happens. I'm definitely like, when I'm having a good synesthetic experience, it's like Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. And like, I'm really trying to translate that as however that might sound to you. I'm really trying to translate that through the pictures. Like, I'm really trying to find a beat and find a sound. Or then it turns into poetry and it's like a lot more verbal or linguistic. I'm really fascinated by linguistics. I don't have a master's. To every person who I've had a studio visit with, I only have a BFA. Jokes on you. I've really thought about actually going back and studying linguistics because it's something that really fascinates me. How we communicate, how sound tells us something that we're trying to tell other people or ourselves, and how can I do that visually? I'm totally possessed by that. So like, I'm not sure that there's like a one solid answer. So what I would like to say is sort of my mentor says, I don't know, man, madness. Thanks. It better be an Ansel Adams question or a Cindy Sherman question.
Sorry.
No.
So, we've been looking at all of these slides. The one that you have responded to repeatedly is the burning building. And I'd like you to talk about what that means to you.
That's a Paul Gilmore photograph. Paul is, well, now he lives in London, he just recently moved. They just recently moved. But they used to live on this small, really secluded island in Maine. And Paul and I have a really, intimate isn't the right word, we love each other in like all the ways that two people can platonically love each other, and also having never met in person before. So I definitely think that there's a really personal aspect to it. Like, he's also, they're also, well, I don't want to speak for them, but they keep to themselves, and I recognize that. Like, I think a lot of these folks, the reason why I love this project more than most is there's a lot of quiet folks who keep to themselves, have kept to themselves, and like, Paul's a person that keeps to themselves. I don't know exactly, but then like, Paul's just hanging out in his barn, happens to look out in their barn, and happens to look out and see that their neighbor's burning their barn down, and like, I'm gonna take a picture of that. That's perfectly normal. This is a normal thing to be happening. So like, I think the reason I respond to it is like a real personal bias, and for real personal and biased reasons. It's also just absurd. I'll never forget the first time I saw this photograph. I thought, what, how, what, why? And I think that when art is able to do that, it's really successful. They don't really understand exactly what's going on right at first. There's something worth valuing and digging into. Also, another thing that I sort of really love about this, and this is like not the most important detail, but like talking about where this work comes from, the previous publication that was sort of canceled. The previous publication came out at the same time with another publication that was curated by a different artist, and it was called House Fire. And when I saw that Paul submitted this picture, I was like, this is a great opportunity to sort of like give a small nod to the other publication that's coming out at the same exact time. And I thought that this was a way to sort of like go see, go get, go look at the publication House Fire. So there's like lots of real intimate personal reasons why I keep responding to this. It's like because of the person, because of what it represents. Could you go to the picture just before it, Sam? Another thing that like I really appreciated is to go from Cheng Ming's photograph of this person, like, oh wow, the lights inside, and like I feel like queer folks and folks of color can perceive that. And go to the next picture. It's a house on fire. How do you perceive things? How are you able to take the ash and turn it into something else? Who was it that I visited with today who said some other, was it Yulian? No? No, there was somebody who, I was talking to somebody today who's...
ash. Yeah, turning capitals to ash.
No, I mean, sure, absolutely, 110%. No, there was somebody who I was talking to today who said, they told me their interpretation that was like, yeah, I'm fabulous, and it's just like, I'm on fire, and I'm so fabulous that like, I set it on fire, and I was like, ooh, that's a fun one too. That's a fun reading of it too. Anyways.
It's also the last image in the sequence, which I feel like adds extra weight to it.
Yeah.
Perhaps because of all the everything you've spoken at length about this image so clearly, it has like an impression on you. Is it last in the sequence because of the weight that it holds for you?
No, it was a nod to the other publication, House Fire. It was like, and now we're moving on to House Fire. And again, that's like, I'm totally obsessed with these details that like some people might get and some people might not get. I really think about Primal Sight, like this other book that I published earlier this year, the contemporary black and white photograph. There are two photographs that sort of epitomize what we're talking about with this sort of. There's a photograph of a couple laying in bed, one's on top of the other, and it's Jonathan Lyndon Chase, who's a painter, with his partner. I always forget his name, sorry. Jonathan Lyndon Chase paints these like really wonderful, surreal. They're sort of like Francis Bacon, but if Francis Bacon was black, I guess. there's a lot of other commonalities between them. They're both queer, there's both like themes about BDSM and our bodies and how the emotionalism of our sexuality is coupled together and like how we question things like that. So there's this photograph of Jonathan Lyndon Chase, and then when you turn the page, there's this tire splashing into water. And one of the things that Jonathan Lyndon Chase talks a lot about in his paintings is he's trying to gear away from the phallus, so there's lots of big open mouths and big open anuses. And I feel like when you turn the page from seeing Jonathan Lyndon Chase's backside to the tire, there's like this big gushy hole. And like, I don't know if anybody's gonna get that if I don't tell them, but it's there for people to either get or not get. I just love injecting these things that are like little nods to what's outside, what you're literally looking at. And if you have the curiosity to like figure it out, or to, I don't even know that it's about figuring it out necessarily, but like however you want to take it, like it's a who wants to ask another question?
I noticed that in your collection of what you're presenting, even for other books, I was actually interested in your color palette choice. I noticed that these colors are this neutral from nature to monochromatic. So I was curious, like, why you approached it in that way. Was it because you wanted us to experience the subtlety, like you're experiencing, or did you just want it to present it in a specific manner because you're trying to say a point?
Can I have both? I think that's my answer. I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think that the work has that potential. I am really interested in photographs that like center things. Like I wasn't kidding when I said like I just started picking all the Mona Lisas. I'm kind of fascinated by the mythology and the ideology and like the constructs around that painting and like what it represents in a lot of sort of unusual ways. And I think that what you're talking about, the colors and the tones and all of that, I really like dramatic turns and I like complicated things that aren't necessarily not supposed to go together. But then I also just like things that sing to each other. And I think that for me, singing is about a kind of harmony that happens, again, really simply. Sometimes it's about color, sometimes it's about composition, sometimes it's about these small little changes that happen throughout the course of the experience, and where you're allowed to take that, and how you're allowed to interpret that, so that you can ask me a question like that. Did I do it specifically? No. Do I see how it is in there? Yes. I allow myself the freedom to not have to understand every choice that I make, because I want to figure it out afterwards. I think a thing really is able to present itself to the person who makes it, or the people who look at it after it's been made sometimes. I'm thinking about it plenty, and I'm trying to construct a lot of theoretical, critical thinking, but I like to allow myself and others that I work with the freedom to like not have to know all the things right away. Thank you. I really like it when somebody points something out and I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I can't remember who it was. Oh, I'm doing an interview for the exhibition that I'm working on right now. And the person who's interviewing me for the Lens Scratch, just a photography publication, if you're not familiar. The interviewer pointed out that the person who designed the book, Jason Coxfold, I talk about the prefix trans and how that means through and beyond. And on the cover, you see the title Witness, and then on the back, it's sort of a mirror reflection of witness. And the interviewer, Drew Nikonovich, sort of picked up on that is sort of a subtly trans, like, traverse through the book and be on the back in this mirror image. And I was like, I hadn't even thought about it like that. That's awesome. Like, I love that the work provides that opportunity that, like, it's about having conversations and, like, figuring things out that, like, I didn't think about it like that. I'm worthy of that. The work is worthy of that. The artists are worthy of that, of the not knowing and figuring out and having conversations and having revelations about these things that we have all these expectations around. And sharing other people's expectations or the way that they read them. Thanks.
I do a lot of scientific writing. I'm in the PhD Psych program.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, sorry. But
I'm sorry.
My beautiful, lovely fiance is in the arts program who helps expose me to things that fill my soul up, which is nice.
They're pretty tethered together also.
I think so, yeah. And being in a lot of scientific publication, having an advisor who's working as an editor for a scientific journal, we have such a focus on precision and utility. If this does not give something to something usable to our audience, then we reject it. That's like a lot of the ways that we help when we're reviewing, considering the publications that we include in scientific journals. And in our conversations, my advisor doesn't use a lot of talk about intuition. You know, there's a lot of very precision, very, how is this useful to me?
You gotta be able to prove what it is that you're trying to say.
Sure, and I think it's really, yeah, proof, yeah. And I think it's really lovely to hear this talk about intuition, but I want to, it seems that a lot of the things that people find out of it, even if you didn't mean them to be there, you're glad that they're there. You're glad that they found some sort of use out of it. And so I'm wondering about how you use intuition as, whether it be a curator or an editor for some sort of book that you're creating. What is it that you consider important to focus on as to why you invite folks to contribute to this work, as opposed to maybe the precision or utility that maybe a scientist might do for a publication?
Thank you for that, and I'm also sorry. Could you pose it again?
Yeah.
A little bit more precisely, sorry.
As a curator and as an editor, what do you focus on when you invite folks to participate and to include their artwork in your work?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This sort of ties back to sort of what I was saying before. That this is sort of the first time that, like, I was just vague enough that people felt empowered, I think. I want to be careful with saying this, but I invented that opportunity. I invented the opportunity that, like, it was just open enough for people to be like, I'm going to go for it. I don't need to be, it doesn't need to be this, it doesn't need to be that. It can just be myself. I mean, hopefully that's what they thought. Seeing the result and seeing and remembering other parts of their submissions, but also just who they are. I mean, it's one of the most dynamic. I was saying this earlier to Aaron's class came in and actually got to see the exhibition. What I also find really interesting, I think is tied to your question. We're looking at Kentucky, we're looking at Washington State, we're looking at New York, we're looking at Oregon, we're looking at China, we're looking at Brazil. In the book there's Germany, there's Sweden in the book and in the show. Maybe I've gotten a little bit off track here, but like I think that that's sort of like indicative of what you're talking about. Like I wanted it to really come from as much as is humanly possible and from places that like we don't think about and we're forgetting. And from people who we forget, and from people who we don't want to think about for whatever reason. Or maybe
just from like an idea of almost an inclusion of things that have, or maybe typically would have been forgotten.
Yeah. This is just the critiquer in me, and I'm so sorry to do this to you and in front of everyone else. I would really highly recommend Lynn Gamwell's Art, Science, and Spirituality. This is a really awesome book that sort of ties all those things together throughout the course of, throughout the course of art history. Like, it's an art history book through the lens of how art, science, and spirituality are all connected to each other. I'm very glad to have a scientist here, because I think that artists are scientists in a lot of ways. I think it's another thing that is really underappreciated in the way that we think about the work that we do, and the potential of the questions that we pose and how we study things and question things and want to understand things. We don't have to prove it as much. Yeah, thanks. If you need that name later, I'm happy to give it to you.
Oh, I found it.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, thank you, Efrem, for your talk. You mentioned your interest in linguistics. So I'm wondering whether you could expand on the title a little bit. It's interesting, it's a verb and it's a noun. Are you witnessing, are the artists witnessing something that has been excluded from the
Who witnesses?
canon of history of come? Who is the subject, who is the object? It's interesting that a lot of your photographs are cropped in a certain way.
Oh, that's up to them. I don't know how they crop them.
Well, you're also creating the balance.
Yeah.
There are plenty of them. There's a heavy emphasis on looking from the back, or the subject is invisible, or there's a shadow. So do you feel, or do you explore those as a metaphor, looking for the subject, or who is speaking, how they're speaking, considering that you are kind of reconstituting presence?
You know, I don't like my answer. Thank you. The question sort of, I personally feel like the question sort of starts to answer itself. I want it to be that complicated. There are all those avenues. I am a witness. These people are a witness. You people are a witness. I think that witness is an opportunity to really question what that means. How do we witness things? What do we do when we witness things? How have we witnessed things? How we share those things? How we not share those things? I really love injecting questions without answers into the work that I make. I think there's a lot more opportunity. I am really, really still recovering from my I hate portraiture. So I definitely think that that is still very present. Something that again, I have the privilege to work through my own shit through other people. There is a lot of masking, there is a lot of backs of heads. It's appealing to me. I like that. Again, it's something that I give myself, something that I allow myself. I'm appealed by these beautiful objects, these beautiful, unknowable things. I'm not sure I have. Then I'm sort of interested in how the audience then sort of starts to interpret those things. And I like that you put that on me. I find that interesting. I'm not sure exactly why I find that interesting, but I do. Because it is partially my responsibility. But it's also your responsibility. And it's their responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. How are we coming together and having that conversation? Do we allow it to have that conversation and that potential? This is sort of a non-answer answer also, so I kind of feel like telling myself to fuck off a little bit. But I don't really think that there's a really clear cut. I also recognize that I don't have to have the answer to every single question, and neither do these artists. Neither do you. I think the important thing is that we're thinking about it, that we engage in it, and that we try. and that we're here to communicate, because there's not enough communication. I think that this is really about how are we making ourselves vulnerable to each other, how do we communicate with each other. That's how we grow. That's how we maybe change things. That's the hope, at least, anyways. Yeah, how do we birth a universe? You know, I don't know. How do we live inside of a world that was designed by people who weren't us? Some of us didn't look like the people who designed that world. I feel like I'm getting a little bit getting off the rails, but like I still think that like that's my interest in linguistics, especially like who designed language, and why do I, as a queer person, have such a difficult time having to explain myself, ourselves, inside of a system that seems like we take it for granted. Like white dudes designed English. I didn't design English. I have to try to find a way to use that language to explain to other people why. Why do I have to do that? Why is that my responsibility? Why is that anyone's responsibility? And how do we do that? It is our responsibility, but how do we do that? Witness. Sorry. Too long.
Quick. As another person recovering from portraiture, so you're recovering from portraiture, but you selected your Mona Lisas?
Yeah. That's the question.
So you're recovering from portraiture, but you selected your Mona Lisas?
Yeah. I think it's through the Mona Lisa that I've really found appreciation for like. I really appreciate that question because like that goes really far back for me. Like I've just.
I know what you mean.
It's difficult to face human beings. It's difficult to face yourself. And the Mona Lisa for me is this thing that's like, I don't think she exists. And I think that there are all these things in the painting that sort of confirm that. You know, the river goes in one direction and the land goes in the other one. And there are all these things. And then there's also the mythology of like what happened with like World War II and all of that like really created and constructed like why it's so important. So it's not just literally the painting, it's also like the stories around it and like the history around the thing. And thinking about people through that, where do they come from, what are their histories, who are they, how do they communicate? I start really appreciating that. It's not just this superficial thing, it's just like to remember that that person existed, because I think that's really how I used to think about portraiture, and I still sometimes do, because I think there's some portraiture that's like, okay, these are all the people, and you're photographing them, and that's fine. And you're doing it wonderfully. But like, what else? Like, what else is the body capable of? So thanks. One more.
I have a question. The least photographic looking piece is by Alex Snow. It looks more like a drawing or a diagram. And how does that make it in here, and why is it in there, and what was that decision?
That's a great question, because the physical piece is actually here. Alec actually said, I'd love to be on the show, but what's in the book is just a scan of the actual physical object. Would you be all right with me sending the physical object? As far as I can tell, it is a Xerox of a photograph that Alec has. I don't know exactly. Like there are parts that look like it's hole punch, but then there are like two pieces. There's a lot of deconstruction and then reconstruction of what I believe is a Xerox image. I've never directly asked. This is yet again another thing that like I own that I don't know all of it. I've been meaning to ask them. However, what I think, and we take that for granted sometimes. Like what is in the book is a photograph of the object. Why is that a separation that we invent sometimes? Like sometimes we look at photographs and it's like we're looking at a picture of a sculpture. We don't think about the picture. We're thinking about the sculpture or the object. And I'm sure that there's like a million people who are listening right now who would love to throw a brick at me, and that's fine, but like how do you perceive things? Reality. What is reality? What is a photograph? What is photography capable of? I couldn't think of a better question to end on. What is photography capable of? And why do we construct these expectations around photography that have to make them specific things? Yeah, I'm curious. I'll let you know. I'm gonna email Alec tonight and be like, "What is this?" Because I'm not totally sure. Thanks for all of your questions and being engaged. This is a dream come true to have an audience that actually wants to ask questions. So thank you.
Thanks everybody. Thank you for the questions. I regret sitting up here because I was afraid there wouldn't be enough questions and I'll have to fill in the gaps. Clearly not the case. Please join us tomorrow between 4:30 and 6:30 for the opening of Witness at the Landmark Arts Gallery in the School of Art. Come and go event. Come see us then. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't forget Jessica's in the feet up here.
Also, Jessica for the opening.
Mask on one.
They're putting it together for a reason.
Yes, the grassy area.
Nice.